I'm Aiden Miller, 25, an engineering student struggling with debt. Thanksgiving dinner was an annual dose of family hypocrisy. Then, Grandpa Harold, smiling across the table, dropped the bomb, loud enough for my parents to flinch. "Glad you're enjoying the college fund, son." College fund? I was swimming in $60,000 of loans. What exactly did my father steal from me? I was raised to believe the Miller family was comfortable but not wealthy. That belief fueled my grind. I worked late nights coding, wore worn-out sneakers, and relied on ramen, convinced my parents, a senior manager and a teacher, had done their financial best. I respected their struggle, never complaining about my debt. The sad truth is, I was a victim of financial betrayal, completely unaware that I was fighting a battle I never needed to fight. Why would my parents let me suffer when they had the money? And what exactly did Grandpa Harold know that Thanksgiving night? I was conditioned to be independent to a fault. My engineering textbooks were secondhand, every project required scrounging for parts. While my father, David, discussed investments and bonuses, I felt like an outsider, a charity case that had better succeed quietly. The pressure to graduate fast and start paying off loans was crushing. I internalized the struggle, believing this was the hard-knock path necessary for my future, never once suspecting that a sizable, dedicated college fund had been sitting there, waiting to be stolen. But why would they steal my future? And how did a simple Thanksgiving remark rip their careful facade apart? Even buried under debt, my passion was my escape. While others slept, I was coding. Building. Dreaming of becoming a software engineer. My small apartment was my fortress. That determination, fueled by necessity, was my first taste of true independence. I didn't need their money to succeed, I needed their absence. But even that independent spirit couldn't shield me from the daily dose of doubt they loved to serve. My father, David, the accountant, saw my engineering major as a frivolous expense, not an investment. He constantly criticized my slow progress toward financial viability. "Why didn't you choose accounting, Aiden? You're taking too long. You should have picked something profitable," he'd sigh, oblivious to the fact that I was already shouldering the load. It wasn't just the words, it was the lack of belief. Every criticism chipped away at my self-esteem, making me believe I was fundamentally failing them, despite sacrificing my sleep and social life. I desperately wanted his respect, but all I got was judgment. Imagine hearing those words, only to find out later he was financially abusing you the whole time. How could a father live with that deception? I was essentially living two lives. By day, I was an aspiring engineer, solving complex problems. By night, I was clocking double shifts at the local convenience store, my hands stained with stale coffee and the fear of missing tuition payments. Sleep became a luxury. Every dollar earned was hard-fought, every accomplishment felt stolen from my exhaustion. I worked harder than every single one of my classmates, most of whom were fully funded. The cruel irony? I believed this struggle was character building, never guessing it was simply the price of my parents' deception. Did all that sacrifice mean anything once I knew the truth? And how did my father react when I tried to share the one small victory I earned? I finally had a genuine win. I won a major regional programming award, pure effort, zero family help. I proudly shared the news at the next family dinner, hoping for one genuine word of praise. Dad barely looked up from his steak. He just shrugged and called it cute. Then came the inevitable comparison. Your cousin, the investment banker, just bought a second yacht. That's an accomplishment. My hard-won, debt-fueled success was measured against his inherited, effortless wealth. It was a calculated injustice designed to keep me small. Was it just arrogance, or were they hiding a financial secret so big it would destroy our family forever? After that bombshell, Grandpa Harold pulled me aside, away from the chatter. He didn't look malicious, just disappointed. "Aiden," he said softly, "tell me honestly, how are you handling the tuition? Your father always told me the fund was covering it, I explained my debt, the loans, the 3 jobs. His face hardened. In that moment, the look in his eyes changed everything. He didn't just suspect, he knew. He knew my parents had lied, not just about the money, but about my entire struggle. What did Grandpa Harold know that I didn't? And how far back did my parents' calculated financial betrayal really go? For years, I'd been starving for a genuine connection. Now, I found an unlikely ally in Grandpa Harold. Over the clatter of silverware, he casually asked about the names on my loan documents and the bank David used. He wasn't prying, he was gathering evidence, gently leading me to the terrifying truth he already suspected. In that noisy room, a fragile new trust was built. I realized he wasn't trying to tear the family apart, he was trying to save me from my parents. I finally had someone on my side who believed my worth transcended my debt. With the truth now buzzing between us, how long before my father realized the game was up? And what would happen when I finally confronted them with Harold's knowledge? The trust one had in my parents wasn't just broken, it was shattered. I walked back to the dining table, my blood boiling, not with childish anger, but with the cold fury of betrayal. I didn't yell. I leaned over the turkey and asked my father, David, the only question that mattered, Dad, tell me about the college fund Harold mentioned. David's face went white. He cleared his throat, trying to regain his senior manager composure. Aiden, that's old history. We set it up, yes, but the market took a massive hit. It's a sad story, son. The money, well, it lost substantial value. There's nothing left now. A pathetic, rehearsed lie. I looked at my mother, Grace. Her eyes were fixed on her plate, refusing to meet mine. Her silence was the loudest confession. It confirmed everything. This wasn't just David's solo mistake, this was a joint, decade-long decision to let me take out predatory loans while they funded their European cruises. They thought their rehearsed lie would work. They didn't know Grandpa Harold was about to walk back into that room with the cold, hard proof. What was the next move in this Thanksgiving chess game? The market crash lie didn't last long. David's composure snapped. He didn't apologize, he went on the offensive. You're ungrateful, Aiden. We gave you a roof, clothes. You're just a spoiled kid trying to destroy this family with your baseless accusations. You should be thanking us, not questioning our finances. That was the final, devastating blow. I wasn't angry anymore, I felt a chilling, profound sense of collapse. The betrayal wasn't about the money, it was about their complete lack of conscience. Grace still wouldn't look up. I realized I was truly alone against the 2 people who were supposed to be my safe harbor. Just as David was demanding I leave, Harold stepped in. He placed a sealed envelope next to my plate. It's a check, Aiden. Pay off those loans today. He leaned close and whispered, his voice shaking, get a lawyer. Don't let this slide. I'll back you. In that moment, Harold gave me my independence and my marching orders for revenge. My grandfather just gave me the money to pay off my debt and the instructions to destroy my parents legally. What kind of investigation would expose the accountant David Miller, and what would be the ultimate cost of this Thanksgiving reckoning? I picked up the envelope. The weight of that check, Harold's gift, was heavy, not just with money, but with the sudden realization of my own leverage. David was still sputtering about respect and family loyalty. I finally met his eye, but there was no fear, only cold, hard determination. I was financially free and emotionally done. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't need a dramatic exit line. I just stood up, placed the untouched dinner napkin next to my plate, and walked out. My father yelled one final threat about consequences, but his voice was already small and distant. I was already planning the legal strategy. Walking through their ornate, deceitful house one last time, I made a vow. This wasn't just about recovering stolen funds. This was about justice for the 25-year-old kid who worked 3 jobs and lived on ramen, believing his parents were struggling with him, not stealing from him. Before my car even left their driveway, I typed a name into my phone, Michael Thompson, a corporate litigation attorney known for his ruthlessness. The Thanksgiving reckoning had officially begun. I realized the true cost of their love, the complete destruction of my family. What did a ruthless corporate attorney uncover about David Miller, the senior accountant? And what was the immediate fallout when my parents realized I was coming after them with the law? Michael Thompson, my lawyer, cut straight to the chase. David Miller, senior accountant, financial power of attorney on a dependents' college fund, who is now claiming the money vanished. That's not a market loss, Aiden. That's textbook embezzlement. We used Harold's check to pay off my loans immediately, then launched the legal assault. Thompson contacted the bank holding the original trust fund. Within 48 hours, they confirmed irregularities. The transactions weren't typical market losses, they were large, regular withdrawals inconsistent with investment strategy. They notified me an official bank investigation into potential fraud had been initiated. That afternoon, David called me. He wasn't composed, he was panicking. Aiden, what the hell did you do? The bank is asking questions. You need to call them and stop this nonsense immediately. The fear in his voice was the sweetest victory. The senior manager, the man who preached financial discipline, was finally facing the consequences of his greed. My father was panicking, but the investigation was just beginning. How much money did they actually steal, and would the law demand they pay me back, or much, much worse? I called Harold the next day, not for legal advice, but because he was the only family I had left. His voice was tired. I should have intervened sooner, Aiden. I should have pressed David harder when I first suspected misuse years ago. I am so sorry I let you carry that financial burden alone. His apology didn't fix the past, but it healed a part of the present. I realized his silence was born of suspicion, not complicity. It's okay, Grandpa. You gave me the weapon I needed to fight back. He confirmed he was ready to testify, to provide any documents he had. In that conversation, we forged a new bond. It wasn't the traditional family loyalty David preached, it was based on shared truth and a commitment to justice. Harold didn't just give me money, he gave me the moral strength to see the revenge through, reminding me I wasn't fighting this battle alone anymore. With Harold on my side, I had the financial stability and the moral high ground. But what devastating financial truths did my lawyer uncover next, and what was the true, shocking amount my parents had stolen? I stood at the bank, watching the massive loan balance drop to zero. That moment should have been euphoric, $60,000 of debt, instantly gone. I was finally debt-free, thanks to Harold. But the relief was muted. The financial victory felt technical, cold. It was a check mark on a ledger, not a triumph of the spirit. I thought about how many late nights, how many cups of cold ramen, how many times I sacrificed my grades or my health just to carry that load my parents placed on me. I realized that the greatest theft wasn't the money itself, but the years of innocence, the peace of mind, and the unconditional support they owed me. I closed my student account and opened a new one under my name only, a symbol of my independence. I had money, but I had lost my parents. It was a hollow trade. But it taught me a crucial lesson. The only trust fund worth building is the one you place in yourself. The money was gone, but the investigation wasn't. What shocking number did the bank finally confirm my father stole? And how did my mother react when she realized her entire life was about to crumble? Thompson placed a thick folder on the desk. The bank finally released the full statement and transaction history for the trust fund, Aiden. Brace yourself. The silence in that room was deafening. This was it, the cold, hard data of my parents' betrayal, laid bare on expensive paper. I traced the timeline. The fund was set up when I was a child. The irregular withdrawals didn't start with my college application. They started 10 years ago. Small sums at first, then ballooning into massive cash transfers. They were stealing from me, bit by bit, for an entire decade. I finally focused on the final balance sheet. The money my father claimed vanished in the market crash? The total amount siphoned off, confirmed by Thompson, was $158,000. Not $60,000 to cover my debt, $158,000. It was enough to fully fund my tuition and living expenses, with plenty left over. Thompson pointed to several large withdrawals coinciding with family events, the down payment on their lake house, the expensive European cruise my mother had raved about, and David's luxury golf membership. My suffering funded their extravagant lifestyle, all while I worked double shifts. The documents didn't just expose David. My mother, Grace, had co-signed several withdrawal forms. She wasn't just silently complicit, she actively participated in the theft. The kind, supportive mother I thought I had was a calculated accomplice. I felt sick. My hands were shaking. I wasn't an ungrateful child, I was a victim of long-term, calculated financial abuse by the two people who were supposed to protect me. I left the office, walked to a quiet alley, and finally broke down. It was the crushing realization of complete, total betrayal. The breakdown only lasted a few minutes. I wiped my eyes. The emotional pain solidified into cold, unbreakable resolve. There would be no forgiveness, no mercy. They didn't deserve a son's love, they deserved a legal opponent who would strip them of everything they stole. I called Thompson. File the civil suit immediately. Demand full restitution of the $158,000, plus all lost market gains over 10 years. And make sure David knows that if he fights, we'll take the documents to the district attorney's office. The game was over. The counterattack was launched. The lawsuit was filed. My parents knew I had the proof. Would they settle quietly and pay me back? Or would they risk David's career and Grace's reputation by fighting their own son in court? Once the lawsuit was filed, a strange, profound silence settled over my life. The constant weight of debt and the fear of financial failure were gone. I was working the same hours, but now it was for passion, not just survival. I found a peace I hadn't known since childhood, the kind that comes from knowing the worst is already over. My focus sharpened. I invested time back into my engineering projects, fueled by self-respect. My anger cooled, replaced by a cold, protective shell. I no longer had to pretend to be a family member, I was just Aiden, a student dedicated to his future. My peace was bought with a lawsuit. But what was happening to my parents? Did David's career survive the bank's internal investigation? Thompson called. Aiden, internal audit at David's company found discrepancies related to his outside accounts. They terminated him. Effective immediately. His reputation as a senior accountant? Gone. It was the first strike of the reckoning. David, who valued status above all else, had his career destroyed, not by me, but by his own greed. The civil suit hit next. We filed a lien on their assets, including the lake house they bought with my trust fund money. Thompson informed them, pay the full restitution amount immediately, or we sell the lake house. That house was my mother Grace's pride and joy, her evidence of success. Grace finally broke her silence, calling me in hysterics. She wasn't begging for forgiveness, she was begging for the lake house. Aiden, you can't do this to us. Your father made a mistake. Don't ruin my life. Hearing her prioritize a vacation home over my entire future solidified my resolve. They refused to settle quickly, forcing Thompson to release documents to the public as part of the legal process. The full details of the $158,000 theft and David's termination hit the local news. They tried to fight, but they couldn't fight the truth. Harold never commented on David's firing, but the pain in his voice when we spoke was evident. He was relieved I was safe, but devastated by his son's destruction. He had initiated the reckoning. But watching his family shatter was the price of his own integrity. Thompson asked if I wanted to pull back now that they were suffering. I gave a simple instruction, demand they pay every penny of the $158,000, plus the market losses and legal fees. If they can't pay, we take the house. That's the consequence of stealing a future. Did they manage to save their precious lake house? And years later, what became of the Millers, and what was the lasting lesson I learned from this Thanksgiving betrayal? We were forced into mediation. David sat rigid, silent. Grace, however, finally cracked. Thompson presented the withdrawal documents with her signature. She didn't deny it. Tears streamed down her face, but her confession wasn't for me, it was a desperate plea for herself. It was David. He said we had to, or we'd lose everything in his bad investments. Thompson leaned in. The money wasn't for David's bad investments, Grace. The documents show he funneled it into his personal high-risk stocks, hoping for a quick, untaxed win. The hidden truth, David wasn't just covering a loss, he was actively gambling with my future to enrich himself. David, seeing his lies fully exposed, finally conceded. We walked away with the settlement, full restitution of $158,000, plus market gains and all legal fees. They saved their primary residence, but they lost everything else. The case was closed. The money was recovered, but the emotional damage was permanent. Years later, what became of the Millers after they lost their status and their money? And did I ever truly forgive Grandpa Harold? 2 years later, I stood on the graduation stage, diploma in hand, entirely debt-free, with a 6-figure job offer. Harold was there, beaming, sitting proudly in the front row. David and Grace were nowhere to be seen. I had successfully salvaged my future and achieved everything they had tried to prevent. The Millers lost everything that mattered to them, David's career, Grace's social status, and their wealth. They had to sell the lake house and downgrade their primary residence to pay the restitution. I heard through Harold they blame me entirely, but their bitterness is their burden. The ultimate revenge wasn't seeing them suffer, it was building a successful life they could no longer touch or control. The biggest blessing Harold gave me wasn't the money, but the truth. That Thanksgiving, I didn't lose a family, I gained my integrity and my freedom. The truth sets you free, but freedom sometimes comes with a price. Have you ever had a family secret that changed your life forever? Tell me your story in the comments below. The restitution check cleared, but the bitterness didn't. The moment they lost their assets, the emails started. They didn't apologize for stealing $158,000, they blamed me for destroying the family. David's first email was simple, "You have shamed us all. You chose money over blood." Grace's emails were worse, filled with detailed accounts of their humiliation. She claimed they lost friends and social standing. Your father lost his job because of your greed. Our church community looks at us with pity. You ruined my retirement for a selfish college fund. I didn't respond to any of them. I'd spent too many years desperately seeking their validation. Now, their hatred meant nothing. It was like a static hum in the background of a peaceful life. Their words used to chip away at my soul, now they simply bounced off a cold, protective shield. David tried one final time, calling my new number, a number he must have gotten from Harold. His voice wasn't angry, it was defeated and manipulative. "Aiden, we need you to sign a document for tax purposes. We'll forgive this whole thing if you just cooperate." This time, I spoke. My voice was calm and steady. "I won't sign anything, David. I have a lawyer for that. The only thing I will cooperate with is the enforcement of the court order. Goodbye." I hung up. It was the hardest, but most necessary boundary I had ever set. Minutes later, a text from Grace, "Your grandfather is heartbroken over this. You are making him sick with your spite. You owe him better than this. He won't forgive you for hurting his son." A final attempt at emotional blackmail using the one person I cared about. I immediately called Harold. He was gardening. "Grace is worried about my heart, is she? Tell her to worry about her conscience, Aiden. You did the right thing. Don't let their manipulations touch you. I'm proud of you, son." His affirmation was all the validation I needed. That year, I spent Thanksgiving with Harold. Just the two of us, no pretenses, no lies. We ordered pizza and watched old movies. It was quiet, genuine, and truly peaceful. The fake, opulent family gatherings were replaced by a real, honest connection. I learned that family isn't defined by blood or shared last names, but by trust and respect. They never took responsibility for their actions. But I took responsibility for my life, and that was the greatest victory of all. I haven't heard from David or Grace since. I walked away from their manipulation and their toxicity. Now that you know the whole story of the Thanksgiving betrayal, what was the biggest lesson I learned that might help you? Through the entire legal ordeal and the subsequent quiet years, Grandpa Harold was my rock. He never once questioned my choice. He'd simply call and talk about my engineering projects, treating me like a capable, valued adult. He showed me what true, unconditional family support really looks like. Even Michael Thompson, the ruthless corporate lawyer, showed respect. After the case closed, he told me, "You didn't do this for the money, Aiden. You did it for accountability." That takes more courage than most people show in a lifetime. Hearing that from a jaded professional was powerful affirmation. Surprisingly, a few distant cousins reached out. They had suspected David's shady behavior for years but lacked the proof or the courage to act. They sent brief, private messages, "We heard what happened. We're proud you stood up to them." These small, unexpected gestures mattered more than any inheritance. I never took that support for granted. I used some of the recovered market gains to buy Harold a small, but meaningful gift, a restored antique radio he loved. It was my way of saying thank you for the truth and the chance to rebuild my life honestly. I gained supporters, but I lost my parents. If you had to choose between wealth and truth, which would you pick? Let me know in the comments. I didn't spend the recovered money on luxury. I was done with their flash and greed. I paid off my student loan debt, put a significant sum into a diversified index fund the right way, and used the rest to start my own small engineering consulting firm, leveraging the skills I'd fought so hard to acquire. My first office was small, just one room, but it was mine. No borrowed capital, no inherited wealth, just hard-earned money and smart investments. Every successful contract, every new client, was a direct refutation of my parents' belief that I was incapable without their support. My life wasn't just about work and revenge. I finally started dating seriously. My partner, a nurse named Sarah, knew my whole story. She didn't judge, she saw the resilience. When she looked at me, she saw a man who rebuilt himself from zero, not a victim of a wealthy family's drama. Harold and I maintained regular Sunday calls. He never asked about David or Grace, only about my success. He was genuinely thrilled when I told him about a big contract win. "That's my grandson," he'd say. That was the validation I truly valued, from the one honest man in the family. I made a conscious effort to avoid the places they frequented. I didn't want to see their pity or their forced attempts at reconciliation. Zero contact was my policy. They were a closed chapter, a historical mistake, not a part of my present or future narrative. I established a solid emergency fund. Knowing I had total financial control, knowing no one could ever take away my stability again, gave me the deepest peace. It was a tangible barrier against the chaos and deceit of my past. I used to define myself by the debt they forced upon me. Now, I defined myself by the career I built, the relationships I nurtured, and the quiet dignity I maintained. I was tougher, smarter, and infinitely more grateful for the few good people in my life. 5 years after that fateful Thanksgiving, I closed on my own home. Not a lake house, but a small place I chose, paid for with my own success. It was a tangible symbol of my final victory, financial independence secured entirely on my own terms. But the big question remains, if you were me, would you ever truly forgive your parents? Let me know your thoughts on forgiveness and family in the comments below. Life went on. and news of the Millers became increasingly scarce, filtered only through Harold. I heard Grace had to sell most of her designer clothes and social club memberships. The realization was stark. The social facade they built was the true victim, not me. David, unable to find another high-status job due to the scandal, took a low-level accounting position at a small, regional firm. He went from dictating corporate finances to doing basic payroll. The irony wasn't satisfying, it was just a quiet, logical end to his career built on deceit. The holiday cards stopped coming. Initially, there were angry, blaming notes. Then, silence. I changed my email, phone number, and address. I realized that severing the tie was not an act of hate, but an act of self-preservation. Harold once mentioned Grace wrote me a long letter, a mix of regret and accusation, but decided not to send it. That unsent letter was the final representation of our relationship, full of toxicity, but ultimately silenced. I preferred the silence. As the old ties faded, the residual anger also evaporated. You can't sustain fury toward ghosts. My focus shifted entirely to the future. I was no longer defined by the trauma of what they took, but by the strength I found in taking back control. Years later, Harold passed away peacefully. It was sad, but I had no regrets. He died knowing I was happy, successful, and financially secure. Before he went, he told me again, "Forgive yourself, Aiden. You did the hardest thing, but the right thing." The money they stole bought me a profound, expensive lesson about human nature and the conditional nature of some love. But that truth was the foundation of my new life. I look forward now, committed to building a family based on honesty, not inheritance. The wound has healed. The scar remains, a reminder of the strength it took to sever the toxic tie. My parents are just two people I once knew who made choices that excluded me from their lives. And that's okay. I finally found peace. I found my peace by letting go of the past. But what if they try to contact me again? Would I answer? What would you do if your family's toxic ties came calling? Share your thoughts below. Sarah and I settled into our small home. It wasn't extravagant, but every piece of furniture, every framed photograph, felt authentic. We built this life together, based on mutual respect and shared dreams, not on the inherited privilege or deceit my parents treasured. Our wedding was small and intimate. Harold had passed by then, but his presence was felt. We invited the few cousins who showed support and Thompson, who became a friend. The atmosphere was pure, no pretense, just genuine joy. It was the antithesis of every fake Miller gathering. Soon after, we found out we were expecting. Holding Sarah's hand, looking at the ultrasound, I felt a responsibility deeper than anything I'd known. My child would grow up in a home where integrity was valued over luxury, and where love was truly unconditional. I often think about Harold. His legacy wasn't the millions he held, it was the bravery he showed in exposing the truth for my sake. I decided that my son's middle name would be Harold. It felt right, honoring the one family member who truly protected me. We started our own Christmas tradition, quiet, cozy, focused on giving time, not just gifts. It was a conscious rejection of the showy, stressful holidays my parents demanded. I felt peace, not pressure, and that simple difference was everything. Professionally, my firm succeeded because I operated on total transparency. My experience with deceit made me pathologically honest with clients. My success became a monument to honesty, a silent, perpetual rebuke to my father's philosophy of financial manipulation. Years turned into a decade. The anger and the blame from the Millers finally faded into irrelevance. They became distant memories, like characters in a book I finished long ago. Their opinion no longer held any power, and that was true freedom. I often wonder if the $158,000 was worth the price they paid, their marriage, reputation, and their son. For me, the price of the truth was the loss of two people who didn't love me, which was no loss at all. It was liberation. Today, I am happy. I am secure. I am loved. The debt is paid. The truth is out. The new chapter is written, not by my parents' greed, but by my own resilience. This is my story of revenge, redemption, and finally, peace. That's the end of my story, but I want to hear yours. What shocking family secret changed your life forever, and what did you have to do to find your own peace? Tell me in the comments below. That was my journey, a tale of betrayal, revenge, and ultimately, self-liberation. I hope my story resonated with you. It's hard to stand up to the people who raised you, especially when they use emotional leverage and financial deceit. Here are the 5 key lessons I learned. First, trust your gut. If something feels wrong in a relationship, especially one involving money, it probably is. Don't let titles like mother or father blind you to toxic behavior or bad business. Second, demand accountability. Emotional manipulation thrives on silence. By taking legal action, I wasn't being vengeful, I was forcing the truth into the light. Truth is the ultimate leverage against people who live behind a carefully constructed facade. Third, define your own worth. For years, I allowed their approval to be my currency. Real value comes from your integrity, your efforts, and the life you build for yourself. Don't let anyone, especially family, tell you who you are or what you deserve. Fourth, blood isn't thicker than toxic water. True family is chosen. It's the people, like Harold, Sarah, or Thompson, who respect your boundaries and celebrate your true self. Don't cling to toxicity simply because of a shared last name or biology. Finally, forgiveness is for you, not for them. I didn't forgive their actions, but I forgave myself for believing their lies and for taking so long to stand up. That self-forgiveness was the key to my ultimate peace and freedom. If this story resonates, please hit like and subscribe. More importantly, I want to hear your thoughts. Have you ever had to choose between your family and your integrity? Share your experience in the comments below. Let's talk about it.